This is Flowers on the Stage.
Ever since I was a little kid, I was really passionate about music, and I don't really know why. Just was one of those things that like struck my interest. And I always like I played piano since I was a little kid, but then immediately like I always took piano lessons, but I actually was like playing guitar and bass and drums just with my friends, covering different bands, and Nirvana, System of a Down, Korn, Tool, Rammstein, all sorts of
What
yes. We
age
used
is
to just
this?
like I've had a band since I was in like third grade. It's just all different things where it was just me and my friends playing in a basement. But I would always do the talent shows and always try to play at like the different battle of the bands and different things like that. Ever since I don't know why. I don't know why I was drawn to that. I don't know if maybe like I wanted the attention to feel special or something, but I've always loved music. I don't know why. Because music is
Where,
great.
where did you first start to like get into music that wasn't exactly, scripted? Or let me ask my question differently. When did you get into like psychedelic music?
When I was maybe 15 or 16, I enrolled at a community college near my house, Bucks County Community College. It was like a jazz improv class for the community college when I was in high school. And there I met my friend Brian Lally, and him and his brother Sean Lally were like the ones that introduced me to Fish and Grateful Dead, obviously, but more so like Soul Live, Medeski Martin Wood, Benevento Duo, um, who else? Other bands, but that funk fusion jazz side of it was what really like got me into it. But they brought me to all different festivals. I went to Modown when I was like 15 and like saw the Nitrous Mafia getting attacked by the troopers wearing all black, like ripping open tents with tanks. And I was like 15. I was like, what the hell is going on here? It was like a big like eye opener to like just seeing people playing keyboards in that setting. I always was like a jazz piano player, but I never realized that I could be a keyboard player with all these cool vintage analog sounds and funk and all the different, improv kind of things. That's when I was like introduced to it. And we would hang out and jam, and they would like, burn me CDs. Back in the day of burning CDs, I would just have all these different, I would say that Medeski Martin Wood, Soul Live, Lettuce, Benevento Russo duo. That was the stuff that I was really into when I was that age. I thought that was really cool, and that's how I got into
I
this
love it.
world. Yeah.
Was there ever a time where you thought about going into something else
You mean what do you mean something else?
professionally?
Like a different career?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I think about that, and then I can't think of anything else that I like. I love yoga, and like, but I'm like, am I going to be a yoga teacher? Not really. I want to just go to a tropical place and do yoga all the time. That to me sounds like a great life. Maybe
What
one
about when
day.
you were like 19 or like, when there were there ever doubts like early on that you should
Oh,
have a plan
early.
B?
I kind of like always knew that I was going to do this, and people always were like, "It's a tough life. You sure you want?" And I'm like, "It's not tough. It's fine. It's easy." Like because when you're young, coming up on it, everything's new and exciting, and it's just such a wild ride when you're starting, and you get sucked in. It is definitely a hard life though. Just like touring all the time, lifestyle is not easy to be healthy, and you don't get a lot of sleep, which is really unhealthy. And so it's hard to not eat Taco Bell when you're super hungry after a gig late night, trying to not eat it late at night. And it's like, oh guys, there's a Taco Bell. We're like, yeah, you know. At one point in my life, I was like, should I be a psychologist or a musician? I guess that was kind of my plan B. I'm always interested in the brain and how it's just amazing that we're alive and we have brains. And so that was always, something that I thought about, which I guess honestly now I feel like I'm part therapist already. Cause like I teach piano lessons to people, or not even just, piano lessons. I teach whatever. I can do a lesson with someone without a keyboard. I can just like, all right, what's up? What's going on? Tell me about your whole thing. And they'll start talking, and then one thing leads to another. And it's like almost like a therapy session or like a coach. I'm like teaching people how to get to where they want to be. So in a way, it's like I'm kind of doing that plan B in a way.
Mm. When you say like you can coach someone without even a keyboard there, like what is what is that they would be learning there necessarily that don't need the keyboard for?
Well, one thing I always try to tell people about is this analogy, especially for like a lot of people I teach are like in improvisational bands and stuff. Like they're, you know, good players that are in the jam band scene. And I think one of the things that I always like to say is when you're playing and improvising with people, you the last thing you want to focus on is yourself. What you really want to do is focus on everyone else, and then like don't even really think about what you're doing so much. And it's almost like the analogy of, you remember when you were a kid, they had like the books where you like bring it up to your eyes and then you pull it back a little bit and there's like a new image there. I forget what that's called.
Like optical
But
illusion kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. It's like you kind of like put it in front of your face and then pull it back, and all of a sudden there's like a new thing there, kind of ingrained in the picture. I think that when you're improvising with a group, if you're able to kind of like zoom everything out and focus on everything as one thing, and then not really thinking too much about what you're doing, more focusing on what everyone else, if everyone is doing that, then it creates this super interesting communication between everyone that is effortless. And it, as a listener, that's the stuff for me with this genre of music, where you're like, how did he know to feel right there? And he's playing right there. And like, they all changed and went here. Like, that's why this genre or community or scene is so interesting to me. It's like
For sure.
it's like watching sports. Every game is different. It's like kind of the same, but there's moments that happen. We're like, whoa, I've never seen that. That was cool. Like they really went for it there. And
For
like you
sure.
miss the pass, but then it like deflects off the hand and bounces off of that. And then this guy catches it and throws it behind his back and he gets a slam dunk. Like that's the moments I think that we're all looking for in like the jam band world.
For sure.
Yeah.
Aside from that, what would you say are some like common misunderstandings that musicians themselves have when it comes to music? And, from your perspective as a music teacher.
That you have to play in a certain scale or mode because this mode is happening at that time or something. Like music is a language and the notes are the letters, and then you learn the scales and the modes and the chords, and those are like the words. But then you want to take the words and put it into a sentence, and then put that into a paragraph, and then put that into a chapter, and then put that into a book, and then that into a textbook, and then you know. So it's like I would say that one of the common misconceptions is like, you can't play that note in over this because that's not, but really it's more about tension and release. And any note at any time works if you like set it up the right way and resolve it.
Mm.
And it's more about rhythm than it is about pitch or chords or any of that. It's more about your rhythm is what sucks people in. And this is like, oh shit. And you could be playing anything, and it has nothing to do with it could be like literally a lot of electronic music is like a sample in this key and a sample in that key with a different sample in this other key. And it's not even tuned correctly. It's like microtonal essentially, but it has a vibe and it sounds cool and it makes you feel something. And that's what it is, like feeling something and getting, like, I like to think of music as time travel kind of, especially jam band music, where when you're in the jam, it's so crazy how it feels like no time really passed. And then you listen back to it, like that was 10 minutes of improv. And if like in the moment, it feels like nothing.
Yeah.
So it's more about like, we're all looking for like healthy distractions from the different complications of life to help us along the path. and resolve certain things. And everyone needs an escape and a release and things they're passionate about to feel like they can handle this world because it's intense.
For sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you're interested in psychology. I feel like most people with a brain probably interested in psychology. When it's, those sets, whether you've been performing them or a fan, and it feels like an hour goes by in the blink of an eye, kind of like you mentioned, what do you think's happening, like in the mind of the listener or player?
It's like a trance. It's like a hypnotic trance. It's like you go somewhere else and maybe you're thinking about something. All sorts of things can happen in that moment. Like my friend opened up this float tank place. Shout out to Tom at Float S&J, South New Jersey. I believe that's the name of it. He's a really cool guy, like one of my really good friends. And he was at a fish show and he just had this epiphany moment during it where he was just like, oh my God, I can just build my own float tanks. I don't need to like buy these pods and do these like, so I can just build a way bigger float tank. He like had this epiphany in like an incredible musical moment. So it's almost like when you're brushing your teeth or you're driving or things where it's like a habit that is super ingrained. So you don't even have to think about it. That's when your brain has like the extra bandwidth for like the subconscious brain to be like, exploring different solutions to different problems and they just appear to you.
Hmm. That's
I
so
think
interesting.
it's kind of like music too.
That's so interesting. So are you thinking about that? Like that's what you're aiming for when, on stage?
I'm aiming to listen to everyone else in the band.
Mm.
That's what I'm aiming. I'm aiming to like have a good time, to feel good, and to focus on the other guys and try to make them sound good.
I love it.
Yeah.
This is Flowers on the Stage, a podcast about being creative and finding success. To support it, please check out our sponsors, New Belgium Brewing, Thrax CBD, and Ticket Relief, the ticketing company that plants trees with a portion of each ticket sold. And now, back to the episode.
Wanted to, of course, pay my due diligence. And hey, what about Tyrese Maxey?
Dude,
Oh, and
thank you.
yo,
Yes, very
what was
amazing.
that? 20 seconds left last night?
That was a very inspiring thing to watch. I really got a lot out of that. Just how like excited he was after too, because he works so
Yo,
hard. He's in the gym at 5 a.m. every day apparently, and has like everyone says he has a positive attitude every day. And to see him get that like life experience and his reaction to it, and it was so special to see that. That was incredible.
epic. No, that's what it's all about. Anyone listening didn't see, like, down 6, elimination game in the playoffs, 20 seconds left, takes a 3 after a pump fake, gets fouled, 4-point play. Then the Knicks hit a free throw. They're down 3. He comes back and hits a logo 3 to force overtime. They take over, winning. Dude's going insane in
It was
Madison
magical.
Square Garden, right?
Yeah, that was really special. That was really amazing. I'm so happy that happened because I unfortunately have like kind of given up hope with the Sixers year after year. Just like
Mm.
Embiid keeps getting hurt, and I wish he didn't fall on the ground all the time. I wish he was more like, I hate the load management thing, but I wish he did more of that because by the time we get here every year, he's not himself. And then it's like, why do I follow this or why do I get my hopes up? It's like the same thing happens over and over. It's like, so, but he is like doing some things differently this year, I think, that are cool. Like he's actually trying to make the shot instead of just trying to draw a foul every play, especially towards the end. Like they're not calling fouls at the end of the game at all, really, in the playoffs. So
He's got to learn some
like,
gracefulness. He's definitely got to be passing first a little bit more, like Jokic would just, change everything.
yeah, I say put him down low at the end of the game and let them double team, and then someone will be open and let someone else shoot at the end of the game. I think that's the move. If I was
What's
the
your
coach.
take? What's your take on Morey?
Seems like a genius person that is I can tell, does a pretty good job. I don't know. I think he's like too obsessed with James Harden. I think, although if we never had James Harden, Tyrese Maxey would not be who he is today. So I think there is a little bit of like, he kind of brought in James Harden to like show Maxey. And then ever since that, he has all the same moves and is using it to his own game. So I think that's cool. I didn't realize that this is a basketball podcast. That's pretty cool.
We
thought it was on, like, a
edit these.
music-
I had to get my
I know.
fix. You know what I mean?
I know. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
You
No,
should-
shout
you
out to
should just-
Tyrese.
You should just
What
leave it
should I
raw.
do?
I'm
Yeah, I
sure
should,
people,
shouldn't I?
when people come to click on a podcast with me, they want to hear about the Sixers. Everyone knows that. So
You know, you're a bit more seasoned now than maybe you were in your early 20s. What were the early days of Dopapod like? And if you could go back and have a phone call with yourself back in those days, like how would that call go down?
Well, it started off as a duo, me and Michelangelo Karuba, who's the drummer for Turquoise, and now Cool, and Ryan Montbleu, and a bunch of different people. He's amazing. So I was trying to emulate the I almost said Emerson Lake and Palmer. I meant to say Phantom and Russo duo and Soul Live, doing the left-hand bass, because I could play gigs with just me and a drummer, and that was cool for me at the time. And so that's how it started. But then I met Rob, and I already knew Chuck, and I met Neil, and all different formations and different random gigs here and there. Like, we would try to play bars and try to play venues, trying to sell tickets and stuff, and just like no one was coming. It was like, shit, man, this is like really hard. And then we started playing house parties instead, and it changed everything. It was immediately changed everything. Like, immediately made new fans, and like not just new fans, but like new friends and new connections that became really close people in our lives. And like, for instance, we used to try to bring people to this place in Boston, like Bill's Bar was the spot, and we could maybe sell 30 tickets, like convincing all of our friends to come. Like, we would sell pre-sale tickets and hustle and all that. And then finally, someone like offered, I don't even know how this happened, but they're like, "You want to play this warehouse party?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And we set up, and literally like 500 people show up, and it's like packed out. And we played 3 songs. The whole place was like raging. In my mind, in my memory version of it, the whole place was like so into it. And then 3 songs in, the cops showed up and broke up the party. And everyone was like, "No!" Like, everyone was pissed, and everyone left and dispersed. And it was the best thing that ever happened. Then the next show we played was like packed and sold out. So
No
it
way.
was like, that was a sign there. It was like, all right, clearly this is the best way to get into this world, because it's a party. It is a party world. And then we started doing it at festivals. We would bring a generator and set up in the campgrounds, and we did that at Bonnaroo. We did that at Burning Man. We did it at Mountain Jam. We did it so many times. Bear Creek in the cold. It was like 40 degrees. It was so cold. We played out there, and it was like, that's where Papadozio first saw us, I think. And then that's how we ended up playing with them. I think because our former manager was friends with someone that like worked with the vendors, so we were able to like bring a generator in and plug it in and then set up outside. We did that so many times, and every time was great. And so that was like kind of the big early days, and we did that. We still kind of do that now, actually. When the opportunity is right. Sometimes you have a tour booked and there's like a day open, and you can't really get a good gig. And so it's just like, oh, maybe we could do something at this person's house. And it's so fun. It's still the best thing, I think, being on the ground with people in a party environment in a small house. It's just special. You don't do stuff like that all the time. And it always feels really good. But then we started a tour, like we got a booking agent. That was the big first step. And once we got the booking agent, then we got the van and we got the lights, and that's when we eventually started to like really tour full time. And we were like trying to find places to crash on people's floors and all that stuff, and convincing hotel clerks to let us have the roll bed for free and all this. It was just way more like just when it was like new and fresh like that, and we were just trying to like scrape by. It was fun and exciting. And it was really fun. I saw this one piece of internet content. It was like a motivational person saying, don't worry about making the right decision. Make the decision right. So instead of being like, I wonder if I would have done that. Like no matter what decision you make in your life, you're never going to be able to see what it was actually like if you did the other thing. Like there's no way to know. You could assume this or assume that, but you could have done the other thing and got hit by a train. Like there's no way to know. So instead of trying to worry, like if you have a big decision in your life, don't worry about if it's the right decision. Just make one and make it right, and do what you need to do to make that one right, because you can't go back, you know?
So what coaching can you say generally about is it making decisions in the right way, or making your decisions be ultimately like the right thing through your work?
It's just that classic thing of you think something's bad, but then in hindsight, you're like, well, if that bad thing never happened, then this really good thing would have never happened. So you just never know you can't second guess yourself. When you make a decision, go with it. And maybe some parts about it suck, but you have to work through it, and you have to get creative and figure out a way to the next thing. And just, you can't. So if I were to call myself in the past, I don't know if I would I wouldn't say to do anything different, because I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'd be like, buy Bitcoin, buy a lot of Bitcoin at all times and sell it in 2022 or whatever. I would say something like that. That's what I would say.
What if you could call you in the future, like when we hop off here?
I would ask more questions than I would tell anything. I'm good. I made it through so many things that could have killed me. Just like van rides overnight to this fucking festival or something. Like, who's up all night driving? I don't remember. And they could have fallen asleep and off the road, you know? Like, so yeah, I think that there is maybe some greater power that potentially is looking out for us. And I don't know, I guess I have faith in something.
That's healthy.
I don't know.
I like to think. I like to think that too.
There's just too much weird stuff that happens all the time for there not to be.
Coincidences can be wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wild.
Synchronicities, they get real weird. So I think there has to be something.
Do you feel like there is such a thing as coincidences?
I think, yeah, there's coincidences, and there's also synchronicities, and there's also maybe fate. There's maybe, yeah, I think all of the above. I
All
do
of the
think
above.
that from what I've heard with like near-death experiences, and as long as these things that I've read in these books are true, there's some pretty crazy stuff that has happened. Like I read this one story where this guy drove off the road and died, and then he appeared in his wife's dream and was like, I just died, and I'm in this ravine where no one can see me. That's where I am. I love you, blah, blah. And she wakes up. And then they go over there, and the car is in this ravine, and he's in there. Yeah. So I've heard of that with my grandmother. My grandfather died, and he appeared at the grandmother and like at her bed. So there's definitely something unexplainable at this point. We don't really understand it, but
Amen.
cool. Yeah.
Along that train of thought, what do you feel like ultimately led for Dopapod to, kind of break through regionally and then nationally?
Have we broken through? Is that
For
true?
sure. For sure.
Dang, man, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going from being, on the tour to, starting to play rooms that are more full to opening for bigger bands. Like, how did you go from step to step doing that?
We toured a lot back in those days. Like we were doing 150 shows or something like that. Like it was a lot, and played a lot of festivals. Like put in a lot of time and work, and Yeah, once the spark goes and you get a little flame going, I always use this analogy. I probably said this on another podcast, but it's like a bonfire and you got to put logs on the fire or it burns out. And new music is log on the fire. A great show is log on the fire. A good conversation with your bandmates about something can be a log on the fire. You know, it's like you
I
got to
like that.
keep maintain. It's like any relationship. You have to put in work and maintain the thing. Otherwise, it can burn out.
Curious, like in looking back at all of the, a phrase people say is work smart, not hard sometimes.
Mhm.
And like,
We didn't do
yeah.
that. Did not do that.
Curious though. I mean, it does take that just massive effort, right? To get yourselves out there, to get known. And,
Yeah.
or at least it did then. Not to say, yeah, like let's just not even think about TikTok for a moment.
I know. I was just gonna say, like now you just do like the right TikTok and your
That's
life
easier
changes
said than
forever.
done though. I mean,
It is tough.
yeah.
I like learned a Jerry Garcia
I
solo.
caught that. I actually got that in my Explore page. That
Dude,
was
it's
pretty tight.
crazy. I've got like 2,500 new followers since that. I've never had a post like that. I've posted so many things like that. And this one, for something about it, like the timing of it and just whatever moment I happen to choose, people are just immediately like, whoa, whoa, and then sharing it. And like, it's still going. It's crazy to me, man. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it speaks to what was in the video.
Yeah, I
But
need
my
to make more of
question
those.
though, yeah, and I mean, just like, people are interested in specific things, and something like Jerry Garcia, you can't, there is no,
Yeah.
way to access
Well, for
that
me,
now.
like the reason I did it is because when Jerry is playing, it does something to me. It's like just his flow and his vocabulary when he's really, pretty much everything he plays, even if it's like not great, it's still amazing. Like,
Hmm.
like some of the recordings, like towards the end where it's like, then he starts to solo and it's just, you can tell he's feeling the music through his whole being. And he's not trying to show off. It's not that. It's like he's just expressing himself in the moment. And so I heard that moment when I was driving. Like, wow, that sounds cool. I want to learn. And I learned so much about like the way he bends the strings. It's like I got super obsessed with like Jan Hammer and Jean-Luc Ponty, George Duke, those guys, and they all do similar bending with their playing. Jerry's bending is totally different. He like approaches instead of like whole step underneath bend, like a lot of people will do like a whole step. I guess this is probably not new information to guitar players, but for me, like the way he bends, it's like a half step bend. So it's coming from a half step, but it's like the slowest half step you can possibly do. It's like, and you like let the note like travel, and it's like a half step. So it's like the littlest bit, and it's just I don't know. It's like, and when he does it, and he does it right, and it's like that note just really makes you feel good.
That's
And
so cool.
yeah, I anytime I hear anything that makes me go like, ooh, I like do a screenshot and then later I'll like maybe like check it out again, be like, do I want to learn this? Oh, yeah, I want to learn it. And then yeah, it says I'm just trying to become the best version of myself. I'm trying to be Jerry. Let's be real.
Aren't we all?
I saw this hilarious thing that was like, Jerry, rest in peace. You would have loved Crocs.
Straight up. That is so good.
And I love Crocs. So yeah,
No, shout out to Crocs, shout out to
that
Gibbets for
resonated with
sure.
me. Yeah.
What's something that you believe now that you didn't believe when you were younger about life?
I don't know. Maybe there was a time in my life when I was younger when I didn't necessarily believe in like a God, or I really still don't believe in like a word that is God or a word that is this religion or that religion or that religion. I think all of the religions are all using their best vocabulary to describe the thing that's going on here. And most people call it God, but there's could be simulation or the source or the creator or the sun. If you think about it, the sun is what gives us life. It's in the sky, it's in heaven. And apparently Catholicism like stole all of that from the pagan religions or whatever. And they just replaced everything and made it Catholic. The sun of God, sun. It's like, that is maybe our God, but then there's billions of those out there. So then what made all of that? But then what made that?
And where did the thing that make it come from?
Oh God. It's so much to think about.
What did you just say?
Exactly. They got me. God got me.
Shout out.
Yeah, but no, I'm reading this book, The Artist's Way. I forget who it's written by, but it's a pretty well-known book about creativity and stuff. And they talk about the source, God, the creator, and that you just you're channeling, like you are a creation of God or whatever, and that the creator wants you to be creating. Like you are a creation of the creator who wants you to create. And that is like what you are here for. And creativity can be in any aspect of life. It doesn't have to be like a song or a book or a play or a movie or anything. It can be a solution to how you want to set up your backyard. Like getting creative, like create, like do something, like make something. Really good book. It does this whole thing where you do these morning pages and you journal every morning, and you do 3 pages every morning. It's really interesting when you do it every day, because some days it's like impossible. Like I can't believe I have to do another page. I probably don't even know what to say. And you can just write blah, 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 blah. Like doesn't matter. But then other days I could fill 10 pages. Just, it's interesting.
You want to talk to me about the new album?
Yeah.
So is there like a story behind it? Not necessarily like the chronology of recording it, but like, is there?
Yeah, there kind of is. Like the last album was 2022 and we toured that whole year. And then by the end of the year, me and Rob, we're just like, all right, let's make some new stuff. We're ready. Let's do it. And that conversation. And then it's just like, I think I was just sitting on my couch and I was looking at King Gizzard, and like they have 4 albums out in 1 year or something like that. And it's like, man, how do they do that? And there's just this moment where I was like, I want to try to do that. And I was talking to Neil about it. He's like, yeah, let's do 4 albums. Let's do it. And so it was like right after the holidays. So I had like some time off in January and February. Actually, it started in December. I started just making demos, so many demos. I was making shit all the time. And then continued on tour. I go through phases of this. There's different phases of like the process for me. And definitely the first step is just make so much stuff. Most of it is unusable. Some of it is good, hopefully. And so, yeah, I made like 60 demos, and then we got together and we wrote a lot as a group too. And then we did a couple different recording sessions throughout that year, 2023. So like when we were on tour and we had a day off, we would go to like our friend's spot and just record as much as we could, little chunks of time off. Like we did a lot up in Vermont, and that was really cool because Rob and Carr just had a kid at that time. So we got to like hang out with them with like the new baby, and it was really cool. And then we just ended up not having quite enough for 4 albums. We could have like pushed it and put out more stuff, but it just didn't feel as strongly about with the other stuff we had. And like, we have a perfect amount for 2 albums. And I've always wanted to make Abophobia, like ever since we started doing the palindrome thing. That was one of the names. I'm like, that sounds like an album. That's really cool. And with it doing the 4 albums, we were going to do all different things, but eventually it was like, let's just do 2 albums, Abo and Phobia. And then Abo was kind of the side of us where like the jazz, more instrumental, funky, party sounding stuff. And then the Phobia side was more of like the rock, progressive, psychedelic side. So it made sense with Phobia being like the darker side, and then Abo sounds like a playful, fun word. And then splitting up the palindrome, because abophobia means the fear of palindromes. So they split it up, and that's it. And all these people, like, it's so funny. They're still like, it makes sense because we still get new fans. I forget about that sometimes. But some people like, I just realized that Dopapod's a palindrome and all their albums. Like, it's cool. I like that too. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Would you say it's at all different in any way from any of your guys' other work?
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I don't want to
Obviously,
just
it's
repeat
unique,
the same
but
shit.
do you
Yeah.
feel like it branched out in any particular direction? You know, obviously they're both different a little bit from each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a little different. I don't know. I've seen people say, not that I read comments, I never read comments, but I did see someone say that they liked our old music better. And I respect that opinion. But, you know, if Radiohead just kept making Creep over and over, we wouldn't have got all of these other amazing things. So I personally don't give a fuck what you think. That's why I wear Crocs.
I didn't see that comment. Yeah, no, shout out to the, I mean, just Crocs are just dope though.
Not that I don't give a fuck. I'm interested to see what people say, but I'm not gonna like recreate something that worked before because it worked before. That's not what art is supposed to be.
How would you say that things outside of music, how would you say they inspire music?
I mean, well, so many things can, like, for instance, one of the songs on the new album, Two Somebodies, Rob was hanging out with Adrian from Twiddle, Kung Fu, Breakfast, all that. And they were listening to a Queen record and it skipped and it got caught on this loop. It was boom, boom, down, boom, 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 and just I don't know the time signature of that, but I think it's like an odd time riff. And that inspired, I was like, that's cool. Let's remember that riff. And then I had a completely unrelated chord change for like the verse that I showed to Rob. And Rob was just like, oh, I wrote a song with those chords. He like happened to write a song with those chords. And it was a different speed. But I was like, what if we slowed that down and added it to that riff? And like, bam, there it is. So yeah, I think, like I said, you know, music is inspired from life. Like the creator gives us these moments if you're like ready for it and if you're open to it and you show up for the quantity, and the creator will show up for the quality, like 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 maybe. And you just make a lot and get used to making stuff that isn't, everything you make isn't going to be great. But some things are, and some things you think are really bad in the moment, and then you come back to it later and like, this is actually really good.
For sure.
So you just have to just make a lot.
Final question for you here.
Okay.
What do you feel like is most important? And maybe this can be advice for anyone listening right now when it comes to living a life that you can look back on and be proud of.
I'd say, you know, follow your intuition on things, even if people around you are maybe saying the opposite. Like, learn to trust your own intuition and treat others like you want to be treated. And you gotta like get out of your comfort zone and try things that scare you. And that's like the things that you do that are scary most of the time lead to really great things. So stay nimble, stay quick, and drink water and sleep.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Shout out to sleep.
Sleep and water, seriously, hugely underrated stuff. Like,
For
wow.
Sure. Hell yeah, man. No, it's so good to chat with you, dude. Thank you so much for joining me. Huge fan. Always love, you know, just getting to hear what's in your mind. And man, what a chat.
Thanks, Cam. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
Everyone listening this far, we got links in the description. Check out Dopapod's website. Keep up on socials, Abophobia. We'll have some tour dates as well here in the description. Get
Like and subscribe.
Like and
Like and
subscribe.
subscribe. Follow. Drop a comment below. All right, y'all.
Drop a comment. Eli, always a pleasure, man.